at that moment, it didn't make me think I want to do the Tour Divide because obviously that seemed way too far, but it made me think like I want to do something amazing. At the end of the year, I want to be able to say that I did something really cool. I like pushed myself. I did something different, something that I will remember for the rest of my life because going to race in Europe is the same stuff that I've done. Like I have nothing to gain. I've been to France, Italy, Spain, Switzerland. Like there was no new place. It's like I want to see something new. I want to push myself in new ways. It was not clear, but I wanted to do something epic and amazing that I would remember because time is flying. At the end of the year, if I've done something epic, I'll be like, 2021 was a great year. That's the year I did that. Like, that's something you remember forever.
Welcome to the Seek Travel Ride podcast, where we share the stories and experiences of people who have undertaken amazing adventures by bike. Whether it's crossing state borders, mountain ranges, countries or continents, we want to share that spirit of adventuring on two wheels with our listeners. Hello, I'm your host Bella Malloy, and I'm very excited to introduce my guest for today's episode of Seek Travel Ride, Marie-Soleil Blais. Growing up in Quebec, Canada, Marie's sport of choice was ice hockey, and one which she actually ended up playing professionally. But ice hockey took a real toll on her body, and she sustained many injuries over the years as a result. In 2011, Marie was listening to the Tour de France while recovering from a foot injury, and it was in that moment she made the decision to switch sports and focus her efforts solely on cycling. She started out in the women's racing scene in Canada before eventually making it to the women's professional peloton racing in Europe. Now, fast forward to 2021, and in response to a question posed by her coach, Marie decided she wanted to set herself a challenge, something which would push boundaries and overcome her fears. So it was she set off from Las Vegas on a 5-week bikepacking tour through Nevada, Arizona, and Utah. Little did she know how transformative this solo adventure would become for her, and she finished with a new understanding of what was possible. Since then, Marie has taken on multiple off-road bikepacking trips, and in 2023, she turned up to the start line of the Tour Divide, an ultra race from Banff, Canada to the Mexican border. This would be a real test for her, to see how years of racing professionally on the road would translate to an off-road ultra cycling race. Marie filmed her experiences on both of these journeys, and they make for incredible viewing. The highs and lows of the bikepacking roller coaster out there on display, from happily whooping while riding through stunning landscapes to the fatigue of pushing limits day after day in the Tour Divide. In 2024, Marie took another bikepacking trip to Colombia, the land of cocoa and coffee beans, high-altitude climbs and stunning vistas. It's pretty clear bikepacking adventures now form a significant part of Marie's life, and it's incredible to see her transition to this side of adventure. Marie has also set up Women's Ride, a project which offers up resources for women to become better cyclists. And it's a way that she can encourage more participation by women in this side of the sport. I'm really looking forward to speaking with Marie today and learning more about how energizing these bikepacking adventures have become for her. Marie, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm super excited, Marie. I think we're going to have some fun listening to you share your experiences bikepacking just in the last few years. But before we get into the details of that, a question which I start my show with, and I ask this of all my guests, is, Marie, do you remember the very first bike you ever rode?
Yeah, well, maybe like my first road bike. I had like this mountain bike, like this cheap mountain bike, and I was riding every like 15 minutes, like in the time at school that you have to get out. And so then I had a physical education teacher who was like, how many kilometers are you doing on this bike? And I was like, 5,000? And he was like, I think you need to get on a road bike. So then I got my first road bike, which was an Argon 18 made in Montreal with Campagnolo. And I cried so much when I sold it. This is the bike that turned me into a roadie. And from there, the seed was planted that after hockey, I wanted to try maybe cycling afterwards.
I've learned something today. I never realized that Argon 18 was a Canadian brand.
Yeah, it's from Montreal.
It's a pretty prominent brand, especially in, I think, the triathlon scene too, isn't it?
Yeah, they do tri bike and TT bike. And what's funny is that, so this Argon 18 is my first bike. My first cycling jersey that I've got on, like, I think it was eBay or something. I liked the color of Astana. So I had this weird copy of an Astana jersey when I was 15 years old. And then fast forward to 2019, I got to race for Astana and we were riding Argon 18. So, like, it was crazy. 15 years later, I'm on a Argon 18 with an Astana jersey. It was just going full circle.
Far out. We need like a photo of you from when you were younger on that Argon 18 with that, knockoff eBay jersey.
Yeah, I had that photo with the Astana jersey, and I don't know where it is, but it's been posted somewhere.
And like I said, I mentioned that ice hockey was really your passion growing up from a sports perspective, that playing in team sports, but it took a toll on your body through injuries and you transitioned then to cycling. But you also did actually take some mini cycling trips even as a teenager growing up. Like, it wasn't that you didn't ride at all or you only rode for training and fitness. Like, you actually did have some mini adventures too, didn't you?
Yeah, I think cycling always been my true passion. The thing is, in Canada, we're born on the ice. We're born playing hockey. That's what we do. That's what my brother did. And so I grew up playing hockey because that's what every kid do. And then at the age of, I think it was 13, 14, when they started to have like these women's hockey team, like I almost quit hockey. And then when the women's team started, then I was really good. So then it was, oh, you could probably make it to the Olympics if you keep going. So then hockey became really serious. But I think when I look back, I think my goal was the Olympics more than to play hockey. What I wanted was to make it to the Olympics, not necessarily. I mean, I loved hockey, but like the injury took a toll, and then it was narrowing down to like I wanted to make it to the Olympics. And then after my first year in university, it was clear that I was past the window to kind of make it because I was out for big shoulder surgery at the wrong time. And anyway, so after that, when my dream was not likely to happen, I was like, you know what? I want to spend my time on a bike. But so yeah, cycling has always been what I would do in the summer. I remember I had this encounter with cycle tourist. I was like, wow, you're riding from like Boston to, I don't know, like something like 800K or a week. Like just asking so many questions. And from a very young age, my dream was to ride across North America on a bike. I just imagined going from home to California. I don't know. And so my mom got me this gigantic map of the United States so that I could start mapping my route to ride across the country. So, and I was 12 years old. So it's not that surprising that I end up doing the Tour Divide many years later.
Instead of going, east to west, you've gone north to south.
North to south.
And you've done some good loops in there as well. Come on now. Like you've had some incredible journeys, haven't you?
Yeah, like I remember the first time that I had to fly with my bike for racing, and I'm flying with my bike to California. That's almost like going across the country with my bike, which is not exactly my dream, but it was still, for people who maybe don't know, like cycling is not a major sport in Quebec. It's not mainstream at all. And so at 12 years old, to dream about cycling was not something every kid do. It was not like, it was really hard it's still really hard to find cycling on TV. Like it's really hard to watch. And so it was a true passion. Like that was in me. And I would go 60 kilometer to high school and then rollerblade with my friend and then 60 kilometer back on my hardtail, like cheap hardtail. And I was like 14 years old. I would like spend my day. So then it was no surprise that when hockey was like, okay, I'm done, cycling was like, all right, I want to do this.
Obviously, there's talent there as well, Marie, and because not everyone decides, okay, I'm going to now ride my bike and I'm going to make it my sport and I'm going to try and be professional. There's obviously some good talent there because you did make it. And
I think in the beginning, I had no idea how professional cycling worked. Like I didn't have, when I started, I think I had no intention of becoming pro. I think it took maybe like a year. It went back. I quickly went back into like the Olympic kind of mode. But I think in the beginning it was just I want to ride my bike, and then you join this little club, and then oh, there's this little local race, and then like I'm super competitive, so like showed up to the race, and then I was hooked, and then I did this track cycling school, and it was like track cycling was the it should have been my sport. I wish I had discovered track cycling as a kid. This was I could have talked about track cycling all day. I was so passionate about it. And then so that was like my main focus for like the Olympics until like maybe 2018. And then it was getting difficult with the national team, and I had this opportunity with Astana in Europe in 2019. So then I switched to road in 2019. I've always like did road with track cycling, but my goal was track. And then 2019, it went to road.
the timing of that as well, because obviously 2020, the pandemic hits.
Yeah, and then that kind of...
Well, that would have changed things dramatically for you as well. Certainly the professional cycling scene changed a lot in 2020. A lot of races were cancelled and things. So I'm just sort of thinking, Marie, you've made your way over to Europe. You're on a pro contract with the team that you had a jersey of in a way, on the team in Europe there to race, and then all of a sudden the pandemic happens and you're not racing. What happened during that period? Were you then back in Canada for the pandemic, or how did that all work?
No, yeah, it did put an end to my career, but that's fine. That's fine. All is fine. So I was in Mallorca. I signed with COGEAS for 2020. I was scheduled to race all of the World Tour race, all of the Belgium Classics, all of the one-day race. And I was in the shape of my life. 2020, I was flying. I was training in Mallorca from January through February. And then March 13, I had a flight to Germany for my whatever. And then I was going to have my first race. And that was the first race of my racing calendar. And that's the flight that I couldn't get on. So I didn't get to race before in the spring of 2020. So then flew home. But then what happened is that I had a good amount of UCI points that I made in 2019. So I was ranked about like just about 100. And so when you have over 100 UCI points, I was able to get paid by the national team. But then what happened is the racing in Canada, everything got canceled for 2 years. But in Europe, the races started again in August. So then the UCI started to start the UCI points ranking again. So a year later, I find myself with 0 UCI points because the races in Canada were canceled, and it's where I made all of my points. And so suddenly I went from being ranked 100 to like, I don't even know what for now. So now I had like no value to negotiate a contract. And then I lost the financial support from the national team because I lost my points. It was complete nonsense. And yeah, that was really frustrating. I was also getting older, and I've done a lot of sacrifice to make it to, like, I was not, people maybe think that I was talented, but I was really good. I have like this strong anaerobic profile, which is suited for hockey because this is what I've trained for 20 years. I trained at 30 seconds, 45 seconds. I got really good in the 5 minute, 5 to 10 minute. It's where I excel. But road cycling is more than that. Like I had a really weak endurance, really weak threshold. I had coaches who told me I was never going to make it in pro cycling. I didn't have the physiology for pro cycling. And so it was a lot of hard work to make it. Yeah, so then when all this happened, I was kind of becoming a time trialist specialist. And I thought, if I'm going to make it to the Olympics, this is going to be maybe the discipline where I have the most chance. And then post pandemic, the national team announced that they were like in the criteria document, time trial was no longer going to be considered, and only results in Europe was going to be considered. And so that meant I had to race in Europe, and I was kind of sick because the conditions it's really difficult to race in Europe. The language barrier, it's really hard to move around. You need to be on a really good team and being really well taken care of. Otherwise, it's really difficult to do it by yourself. It's not as easy as in the US. You can kind of stay with family. People open their door, and I got to stay in Tucson. So it's just so easy in the US, but you can't do that in North America and in Europe. And so post pandemic, all of the stars started to disalign for me to make it to the Olympics. So 2021, I have no contract. I lost all of my UCI points. I have no financial support, no contract. There's no racing where I know that I can make a results. So I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah, wow.
That was the lowest point because I didn't know bikepacking yet. I was going through a dead end. There was nothing else. So that was really, really hard. And then cycling in Canada, the national team hired this coach and to help the women's side of the sport. And so they offered coaching for 5 women. So I was one of the 5 because I was like, I'm done paying for coach, whatever. I'm done. But then, okay, I have free coaching from the national team. I'm just going to take it. And this guy was like a different coach. He was, I wish I met that guy so many years ago. So that's the one who was asking me the question.
I'm trying to put myself in your shoes there, Marie, because you know, you've worked hard, you've trained hard for something, you're building up to something, you clearly was working. The global situation has caused you to be, everything's ripped from under you, and there's a full stop, your Olympic goal's not there. But it's almost like there's a moment of serendipity in that you've been this coach, because it was this question that he asked you that changed the trajectory of where you are now. And for my listeners, the question that he asked Marie was, at the end of 2021, I want to be able to say that. So he wanted you to answer that question. And I can only imagine when you first saw that, what were you thinking, and how long did it take you to figure out what your answer was going to be to that?
So that was like in February. So basically he sent me a sheet. So he figured that my problem was not training. My problem was I needed to find alignment. I needed to find my source of motivation. What do I care about? Because if your head and your heart and your body is all at the same place, this is the only way that it's going to move well. If you're trying to make your body accomplish something, but your heart wants to be somewhere else and your head thinks it's stupid, then it's not going to work. So he realized that I had this issue of I needed to go race in Europe, but I didn't want to. There's no point of trying to train when things are not aligned. So he was telling me about this alignment and trying to redefine my goal, because I was much further in my career than when you take this young athlete who has everything to gain. Like I was kind of at the end of my career. So he was really good at figuring out that, okay, Marie doesn't need a training plan. She needs to know what she wants to do. And this like so he sent me like this document, and there was a bunch of questions, This is why my movies are good, because I'm so emotional.
I'd give you a tissue if I could,
mean,
but it doesn't matter. I'm here for the emotions, and I'm sure our guests are too.
Yeah, so there was a bunch of questions. I can't remember all of it, but it was like all the questions were beyond the typical "What's your goal? What do you want?" It was more than that. It was like, what makes you happy, and how do you like feel accomplished? And one of the question in the document was at the end of 2021, because we were 2021. I want to be able to say that I think it's the next day that I came across the I Just Want to Ride, the documentary with Lau Wilcox on the Tour Divide. Like this was I had no idea. And so I'm on the stationary bike because I don't normally watch stuff. And even on a stationary bike, normally I would have my music and it's just in my head, but that winter it was like, ugh. And this came up. I didn't even click on it. It came up. And I'm like, wait, what? Like at that moment, it didn't make me think I want to do the Tour Divide, because obviously that seemed way too far, but it made me think like I want to do something amazing. At the end of the year, I want to be able to say that I did something really cool. I like pushed myself. I did something different, something that I will remember for the rest of my life, because going to race in Europe is the same stuff that I've done. Like I have nothing to gain. There's nothing. I've been to France, Italy, Spain, the Swiss, like there was no new place. It's like I want to see something new. I want to push myself in new ways. It was not clear, but I wanted to do something epic and amazing that I would remember, because time is flying. At the end of the year, if I've done something epic, I'll be like, 2021 was a great year. That's the year I did that. Like, that's something you remember forever. I think it was like not even a week later. I told my coach, so I went on bikepacking.com, and then I found this route in Peru, or it was something nuts. So I called my coach. I said, I'm going to Peru. And he was like, oh, well, okay, maybe find a route closer. You don't have a lot of experience. I had never camped before. So I called my sister and I'm like, can I borrow your tent? Like I had never slept outside. Zero. When I was a kid, I did these trip, but I would stay at a friend's house. The camping part, that was entirely new. Yeah. I was really excited about becoming the person who's done something difficult. It's not just, oh, it's going to be great to suffer. No, it's like, it's going to be great to remember having done that.
Totally out of your comfort zone too, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And can I just say, it's one thing to say I've never camped outside before, but it's another one to decide I'm going to camp outside on my own.
Yeah, I'm just going to go by myself for 1 month.
Yeah. Talk about outside of your comfort zone in the desert, in like the most remote landscapes.
I had no idea, but I didn't know. I didn't know that I was putting myself in so much. It was just like ignorance is bliss, big time. I never expected the route to be so remote.
Wow. Can I ask Marie a question? And I know that you set yourself this challenge because you specifically wanted to be uncomfortable, you wanted to be challenged, you wanted to see things. But do you think, reflecting back, had you known the stuff that you would have been challenged by in the first few days, do you think you would have let yourself go?
Never.
Wow.
It was frightening. It was absolute like oh, but I never turn around. I never quit. That's like so deeply.
Yeah, ingrained in you. You say that during your movie, actually. I think it was, oh gosh, I'm skipping a few weeks ahead because this was a 5-week trip, but I think were you climbing Mount Lemon, or it was like really bad weather and you say, everyone's like, oh, you're shivering in a car park and they're like, it's going to get worse and you're not kitted out for this. But then you're like, but I never turn around.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna do it. Yeah.
When I say we're skipping ahead, listeners, you definitely want to watch this. And actually, while I'm thinking of it, Marie has a fantastic YouTube channel. She's got a bit of content there, and specifically her two, I guess, docos of videos of her experiences on this 5-week trip and her Tour Divide trip are worth seeking. The first one is called A Bikepacking Story, and this is what we're talking about right now. And the
Yes.
second one is Chasing, a Tour Divide Story. So, Marie, what is your YouTube channel name? And I'll link it in the show notes so that our listeners can seek it out.
I think it's just my name. It's just Marie-Soleil Blais. Yeah, so it started, I never intended to start a YouTube channel. Basically, so my mom got me this GoPro just before my trip as a like, oh my God, you're going to do something epic. Here's a GoPro. And I had no idea. I knew nothing about video. I had this chest mount and I just pressed record. And then like 6 months later, I was like, okay, what am I going to do with all this? And I kind of figured out video editing. This was my very first video. The first film was like I had never done video editing before. So it's a bit like chunky, but it's full of authenticity and like emotions. And this trip was so life changing. We can get dig a bit later, but so that film ended up just working like organically. And so then last year I met somebody who was like, hey, you could make adventure film because like you're really good. And I was like, how? Now I'm kind of learning, and it's really interesting to learn how to tell a good story. And so when I decided to race the Tour Divide, I was like, this is going to be my first race. So I wanted to document it because it's so many people are afraid of taking their first race. So I knew that this story was going to be so relatable, accessible, because I have a lot of fear. I'm so human.
And it's that authenticity which really comes out in your films. It's just there laid bare to see. And I think a lot of us can probably be transported to your shoes experiencing those moments. In that first film, it's the first day you're leaving from Vegas.
That's Vegas. Yeah.
Yeah, leaving Vegas, baby. And you're heading out into the desert and into these isolated landscapes.
I had never ridden off road. I didn't know. So I found this route on bikepacking.com. It looked fine. I don't know. I just put this in my Garmin, and then I'm like, are you kidding me? This is real dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
But now I'm like, so here we go. I go, and then like I fell because I never rode a heavy bike. And then the hail, and then it snows, and then it's just like
I must say, that was something I totally was thrown by. Like, just that landscape and the remoteness of it is one thing, but just the extremes of the weather that you faced as well. A hailstorm in the desert. When we think of deserts, we don't think of rain, let alone hail, right? But and
yeah,
maybe this is common in there. I don't know.
yeah.
There's a scene where all of a sudden you're filming like this. Oh, that looks pretty nasty out there. And then the next minute, you've had to get off your bike, grab just your tent cover and shelter underneath it while hail's pinging from the outside. Like, what were you thinking in that moment? Were you going, what on earth am I doing? I would have been so scared.
I was frightened. And I was like, you have more chance to be hit by lightning than to win the lottery. And I have a cousin who won the lottery. So I'm like, I could very well die right now. It's really dangerous. Like I was the tallest thing for like miles because there was nothing. It was real desert. I mean, I don't think my tent was like on the top of my handlebar bag. So I was like, if it starts pouring, I'll just grab my tent cover and just kind of hide under. I mean, which is silly. I think I didn't have rain pants. I don't know. It was,
Ignorance is bliss, right?
yeah. So then that's what I did. And I kind of wrapped the tent cover like with my bike. And so it started like hailing. And so I'm like under my, yeah, what am I doing? I might die. Maybe we can touch a little bit on fear because I did a lot of mental work with fear because I do have a lot of fear. And everyone who talks with me, they're like, wow, I thought you didn't have any fear, but like I fear everything. But I'm also really good at dealing with my fear. It's different. And one of my trick, and I talk about this in chasing, it's like you have to ask yourself, do I want to live my life without doing this? If it's like no, then do it. Do it and deal with it. So if I'm gonna die on this trip, well, I was meant to be there. And so once you're there, you have to just trust that it's gonna be fine because you chose to be there. Like your destiny was there. So if something is to happen, just let it happen because you don't want to live your life without doing this. And so I accept the risk. There's very little chance that something happened, but I accept it because I refuse to live my life without doing this. And so when things go like I'm in under my tent, it's hailing. Looking back, no, there was lightning. Lightning was scary. Lightning was,
The lightning would be scarier than the hail. You've got a helmet on after all, but
yeah. But then that's what I tell myself. When there's like a proper risk, then you do the best that you can to like minimize the risk, but sometimes you are at risk. And so in that moment, I tell myself that I chose to be there and just have faith and accept it.
The other thing, and you touched on this as well, you've got a lot of experience riding a bike. You've turned the pedals for thousands and thousands of kilometres, but predominantly before this trip, all that experience was on asphalt or in a track.
Yeah.
Certainly not off-road. And off-road, there's different things which take a different skill set. And it's not that people can't learn it, but it's not like everyone's just a natural and all of a sudden you're bombing down a rocky descent. There's fear to overcome at different moments from that as well. And I imagine you would have had that to deal with during this trip as well.
Yeah, I'm a terrible off-road rider.
I bet you're better than you think, especially now. I bet you're better than you think.
Well, I've got a little better, but I think I'm better than when situations occur, I react really well and I stay upright. So I have a good instinct. Some people just crash. I'm able to stay up, but I have so much fear. If I can't avoid, like so many times, like if I have no choice, oh my God, I can't do anything, then I'll just like manage the situation. But if I can see it ahead of time, then I'll just walk. Because I walked so much on the Tour Divide, and people will say it's not even technical. But for me, I see rocks. I walk. So I thought that was a big issue until last year. I signed up to this mountain bike race. I thought this was going to help. Maybe it kind of did, but it was frightening. Sea otter mountain bike race. And I ended up riding with this guy, and I was like panicking, freaking out, and just walking because I couldn't. I was walking the same speed that he was biking up. So then it was like, oh, it's fine. Sure, maybe I'm a little slower, but it's not as bad as I thought. So if I see a rock, instead of being like, oh my God, I just freaking get off the bike and walk it and then get on my bike, and I don't spend mental energy on it. And I know that I'm not losing much time.
Wow. And so was it that experience? Like actually seeing, walking actually isn't that much slower than riding that flipped that for you? Because I've got to say, for me, that's something like, and I really don't mountain bike now because the fear's built up too big. I had a nasty high speed crash and I had a crappy slow speed crash. Both of them injured me badly. And so now I'm scared going fast and scared going slow, which is not a great combination on the dirt.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Yeah.
I definitely get in my head if I have to walk something that probably 99 out of 100 people wouldn't. So I can imagine what you were like. And now you just don't have that anymore. You're just like, who cares if I walk? I'm walking and I'm still going.
Yeah.
I feel like I need to bottle that into a pill, Marie. I'll call it my Marie-Soleil Blais little magic pill of getting over the fear. I'm going to try and take a drink from it and then see how I go, because I think that's a great strategy.
And okay, let's go into fear. So that was the same in road cycling. So you have to develop the skills that will enable you to feel confident. So it's not about doing something that scares you. Oh my God, this is scary. Okay, you have to do it even if it scares you. No, build the skill until your ability, the threshold before it's too much. It's just going to be further, because in the peloton, I had a lot of fear of crashing in the peloton. And so in the beginning, I had fear racing in Quebec, where, there's so much space because everybody's not like Europe. It's just with experience and skill. It's not about having courage of doing things that are scary. No, it's just kind of building the skill. And so when I go back to bikepacking, I'm only riding when I have 100% confidence that I'm going to stay on my bike. If I have a doubt that it's possible that I fall, I walk. And so I've been riding more and more off-road since 2021. So I'm getting better, but I'm never doing things that I'm not comfortable doing. It's just that now I'm comfortable doing more things. So I think for the people who have a lot of fear, I think it's just keep doing what you are comfortable and keep doing it. Let it grow. And you don't have to do things that are scary in order to be able to eventually be able to do that section or something. Let it come. Just like I did in road cycling, it was learning the skills that build confidence. It's not pushing through fear.
And allowing yourself to do what you need to do to get yourself through. And if that means walking a tricky, rocky section or whatever, then just walk it. Can I ask then, through experience, we learn what we can do, and you've definitely entered and taken on things which are purposefully challenging you to push your boundaries so that you can discover what you do. Reflecting back with experience, looking back on that first trip, someone who'd never camped on their own, how are you camping on your own now?
I don't camp anymore. I just fall off my bike when I'm dead. That first trip was discovering camping, like, I didn't even know how you make food, how it was learning everything, because my bike was really heavy. And then, so my second trip, I was a bit lighter. I tried to ride the divide kind of fast in 2022, not the Tour Divide, but I just wanted to see if I was able to, like, if that's something that could be possible, because I have a lot of fear. So that was like my stepping step of, like, I'm just going to try to ride for a week or two, try to ride 10 hours a week. I think I like moving. I like this pace and not carrying everything. So I think now what I enjoy the most is riding, is not so much sitting around camping. But I love being in nature. I love just waking up in the wild and going back up. But I like not having to unpack, carry all that stuff, being like on the ground, trying to I'd rather pedal. So I guess bikepacking racing makes more sense.
Yeah.
And even so, I did this trip in Colombia last month, and I wanted it to be kind of reconnecting with just biking, and I was just trying to go fast. I was like, I can't do bike vacation. I just want to race.
You've switched into that ultra mind, and interestingly enough, there were some other guests that I've interviewed before that have had that for them as well. So we're transitioning your mindset from an ultra rider who's doing, hundreds and hundreds of kilometers a day, pedaling your bike for 15 hours or whatever it is or more, to then all of a sudden the idea of even a day which is only 5 hours of riding, which is slower, which is in camping, like, that's a hard mindset to transition to as well. So I could see how you have fallen into the path. You're doing what gives you joy, right?
Well, so Colombia I thought this was going to be like a vacation because it was a bunch of, I did a couple months in front of the computer all day. And so I was like, when I'm done the film, I published the film. I was doing this boot camp for women. And when all this is done, I'm taking a month off, going to Colombia just to, like, ride my bike, relax, whatever. But then, interestingly, I realized that I didn't have really a goal. I was not chasing anybody. I was like, what am I doing? Like, it's hard. But hardship is amazing when you try to overcome it. But when hardship is the vacation, I was like, well, this is difficult. And there's no point of me getting there fast or getting to that town before tomorrow. Like, why? And so you can go slower. But then I was like, I think I'd rather race because I like to have this mission. It was hard to kind of go slow because it's still uncomfortable. It's still difficult. But then I didn't have like this grit of like, I need to keep going. No, I can just slow down. But then it's still uncomfortable. And then you still have the weather. You still have all of these things. And so I was like, I think I'd rather race now. But the first trip was different because it was so difficult just to learn camping, there was so many new things. I was challenged in every possible way. But now that I'm getting more comfortable at these things, I don't know. I think I need something to be really hard to feel extremely satisfied.
I was wondering, that first trip, you were in pretty isolated places, so you're spending a significant amount of time on your own as well. How are you with your own company? Was that something that challenged you as well, to be alone in remote places as well?
No.
You're in your happy
I'd
place.
rather do myself than with people. I have no issue. Even as a kid, I loved spending my days on the bike by myself with music. For me, I don't even listen to audiobooks or podcasts. It's just music. It's just music all day. And that's why my films are very musical. And maybe it's too much for some people, but it's how, like, there's a lot of emotion that you can share through music without words, just with vibe, energy. And I like to pick music. I used to like DJ, so I like to pick the right song for the right moment for the right flow in the story. It's like my films are like you can listen to it like a musical theater or something.
The music in your films really show the changes in energy too. And this is something that was really stark to me. Bikepacking is a roller coaster of emotions at times, whether you're doing it touring and especially if you're doing it racing. So clear in both films, especially in the Tour Divide, what that roller coaster was like. And
Yeah,
with each scene, it was, which emotion is Marie going to be showing us now?
it was like woo, yeah, ups and downs.
Yeah. I love that you actually go, woo, like you actually whoop.
Yeah.
I imagine you're doing it naturally. I don't know whether you also sometimes do it just to lift your own spirits, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I started doing these, ow! I think it was in my first bikepacking trip. And then it kind of became like my signature. I just do it all the time on training or it's just like when I feel free, when I feel good on my bike, it's just a way to just embody this energy. I just do the wolf. I love to do it. Riding my bike, doing the wolf. I just love it.
Oh, I loved listening to it because, again, it was that roller coaster of emotions. You can tell you're having fun on this trip. Like, it's a hard struggle. I think there's a point where you say, everything hurts. I cannot walk. I cannot sit. I cannot lie down. The only thing that doesn't hurt so much is riding this bike, so I'm just going to have to keep riding this bike. And I thought, lucky, you got a few days ahead of you for doing that.
Yeah, but that lasted not long because I think the next day I was like, this is impossible.
I think something which was really on display there, Marie, was just how much you were constantly pushing your own boundaries with each and every day. Each day on the Tour Divide, you were doing things that you didn't think you'd be able to repeat. I can't do that again. Like, somehow you kept doing it. I think an element of that came from that competitive side of you, what we called the chase. And there was like a women's peloton of dots in the 2023 Tour Divide.
I was so close. Like I don't think I could have done that without April just in front of me or Alexandra or whoever because I kind of and I would be really curious to see. I don't know if I haven't committed yet to do it again this year, but that's what I would be curious to see is if I manage my sleep better, would I be able to race better? Because last year, my first race, I was so close to catching everybody. I was so close to third position that I just wanted to get there. And I was just falling in pieces and falling in pieces. And when you look at like April, who was just not looking at the competition, not looking at the tracker ever, she seemed to have like a fine time and she was ahead of me. And I was like pushing myself so hard and just falling asleep and getting back up. And just, it was just a big mess. So I wonder what would happen if I managed my sleep better. But yeah, so I think having competition in front of me made me do incredible things. And second is I'm really good at managing discomfort because I trained myself to do this. And like in cycling, I became a time trial specialist because I would say I became a master of the mind in like managing extremely difficult effort. But I'm talking about 45 minutes. So I was really good at not flinching for a second for 45 minutes. And meditation is what taught me this. And when I learned the correlation between my ability to meditate for a long time and stay focused on my breath without getting lost in thoughts, this correlates to my ability to push the pedals and not be being distracted by the pain or by anything, not paying attention to anything, just riding through and just focusing on my breathing, on my pedaling, on my head, the tuck down, looking at the road, looking at the shortest lane. When I saw the correlation, I just started doing so much meditation, so much. And it was just visualizing pedaling fast, pedaling fast, pedaling fast. And to the point where I've done some results in time trial. My numbers don't explain. I don't have the talent to have the results that I have in some of the time trial. I was just so good at getting the absolute best out of me on any given day. Even if I'm on a bad day or a good day, doesn't matter. I'm going to get the absolute best out of me on that day. And I had so much confidence on race day. I'm like, I know I'm going to do my best because I always do my best. And that's all I have to do. I became really, really good at this mental game. So that's kind of when I heard about the Tour Divide, it was like, oh, now that's challenging because I know how to do it on 45 minutes. What happens if the race is 2-3 weeks long? Like, how long can I sustain that mental? And so this was my experiment. This was what I wanted to test. That's why I was like, I'm gonna set my like I wanted to set my mind to win. I was going for the win no matter what. And then I heard that Lyle was gonna race. I'm like, I probably won't win, but that's fine. I just want to set my mind a winner mindset of like, I'm not going to quit. I'm going to get the absolute best out of me. And through any discomfort, you just focus on breathing, on pedaling, on looking ahead. One of the trick in meditation is if you feel some discomfort, you could be like in the car and then, oh, your back hurt. If you put your attention on your pain or on your discomfort, the more you focus about it, the more you let it take all of the room, the less it screams at you because it just wants to tell you that there's a discomfort. So if you have pain in your legs, just listen to it. Just let the pain take all the freaking room. And then what happens? You're like, oh, it's bearable. What's not bearable is when I try to ignore it, is when I try to be in the shower later, is when I try to picture what I'm going to eat later. No, stay with that discomfort. Let it take all of the room. Just freaking embrace that discomfort. And then you're like, well, where's that discomfort? Like it's so everywhere that I don't even feel it anymore. And that's powerful because once you get that, you're like, I know how to deal with when suddenly pain is screaming at me. I know how to deal with it. I just give it my attention. And I know that I can deal, if I can deal with split second of pain, I can deal with the next split second. I can deal with the next split second. And so suddenly it's not hours of discomfort. It's just little moment that it's screaming. And then you put back your attention into that moment. So I was really good at dealing with that in short period of time. The Tour Divide for me was this experiment of like, I wanted to see if I was able to do this for a longer period of time. I don't know where I was going with this story, but that's kind of for people who wonder how the hell do you sustain difficult things? That's how. It's not fighting it. It's not resisting it. It's not, sometimes we have the current state, which sucks, and we have the desired state, which is, I want to be at that city. I want to be in the hotel room. I want to be in the shower. I want to have this meal in front of me. These thoughts will come, obviously, but it's about letting go of the desired state and coming back to your current state. And that's meditation. That's how you deal with any difficult emotion. It's the same thing in bikepacking. But then what I didn't know, so that was me going into the Tour Divide. I was like, I have the mental to do this. I sort of have the physical, kind of, I'll just figure it out. But then what I did not expect was there's so many decisions to make on the Tour Divide. You need to plan things. So it's like, it wasn't just dealing with the pain in one moment or dealing with discomfort in one moment. It was trying to think, trying to make decisions. And I was not prepared for this, because in a race, you don't make plans. You just go. I would come to the gas station and I was so tired that I was like, what am I going to eat? And then I was just a big mess. I lost a lot of time. So then I realized that it was a lot more difficult than I expected. I didn't expect it to challenge me in that regard.
I've been there before, Marie, where I've been in like a supermarket or something thinking I need to get food so I can keep going, and just sort of have that 100-mile stare looking at the food options and being so indecisive. You're not making life-changing decisions. You might be deciding, do I want a muesli bar with fruit? Do I want a muesli bar with nuts in it? It's nothing massive there.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, just the smallest of decisions just take over, and then time expands and stuff like that as well. You mentioned if you were to take this on again, you would manage sleep differently. What was your strategy for sleep? Like, did you actually have one at the start line, or was
I had a plan.
Okay, what was your plan?
I had a plan. It did not go to plan at all.
Plan out the window.
That's amazing.
So what was the plan?
And it's so funny because there was this book. Anyway, I'm going to try to make a short story. In 2020, was it 2021? I started time trial at nationals in the last position, which is like the favorite, because it starts with the best are at the end. Because of the ranking in 2021, I started the time trial in last position, which is like the favorite, which is like, I could be national champion. I just need to go faster than the person in front of me. But this is the wrong answer. This is not about going faster than the person in front of you. It's about doing the fastest time possible, your absolute best performance. And I knew this so well. But somehow, being in the last position, being so close to being national champion, because I knew that I could beat this person in front of me. I beat it twice. I knew that I could do it. But I just wanted to catch her. And I started too fast. I never made a mistake in time trial, ever. This time, I went too fast. I was just trying to catch her. And I got completely distracted by just staring at her rather than staring at the road and taking the best line for me in that moment where I was, and not looking at what line she was taking. And this was the worst 45-minute ever. It was such a terrible race. And I lost. I came second. And this was such a great learning experience, though. And then looking back on the Tour Divide, I did the same thing. I was just trying to catch them, which is not how you make a time trial. And so my sleep strategy, it was kind of vague because I didn't know what I was getting into. But after chatting with Lyle Wilcox, she was telling me that it looks like, from the data, it looks like sleep is more and more popular. There seemed to be advantage, like more positive advantage to sleeping more, because what you gain in speed is higher than what you lose in time. And so Lyle was telling me her sleep strategy, which was a little bit more sleep, I think, if I'm not saying anything wrong, than her previous attempt. And so I was like, I never thought I could cut sleep. I thought I was going to sleep 6 hours every day.
Hello, listeners. It's Bella here, host and producer of Seek Travel Ride. Many of you have recently gotten in touch with me to find out how you might be able to support the show. I am an independent podcaster, which pretty much means I sort of do everything. I research my guests, I interview them, I put their audio together and I do an edit of that, and then obviously I release the episodes and market them as well. It's been a great experience now for just over a year, and we have 60 episodes in the bag as well. But pretty much if you do want to support the show and show some love to the content that I have been producing, I have recently set up a Buy Me a Coffee account. It's just a way that you can financially contribute to the show and put some funds towards the running costs of producing this podcast. I'm very proud to be an independent podcaster, and whilst it does mean there's a lot of work on this show at my end, it's an absolute joy to bring it to you at your end. I have included a link in the show notes to my Buy Me a Coffee account there, so if you want to support the show, just click on that link. Once again, thank you all so much for your support. Now let's get back to the episode.
I ended up averaging like 2.
You visibly see that actually. There are some shots in the film when you go, wow.
Oh, yeah. The trailer. It's like, oh my God. I didn't think I could push myself to that limit. And I don't think it's great. This was a little stupid, extreme. I don't think it's healthy. But kind of glad that sometimes you learn by overdoing something. So definitely, if I was to do it again, I would like to be more strict with sleep and less worried about the tracker. We saw it with Gail. She had an infection or something in the beginning. Like, she was not even close to us because she was sleeping every day. And then when she started feeling better, then she started riding, and then she passed so many people. So it's like, okay, if I was to do it again, commit to sleep 4 to 6 hours. And the thing is also, some things happened. Like, I had this mountain lion encounter, so I was gonna sleep, and then I'm frightened, so I kept going. That was not planned. And then I had this caffeine, or like, it's you have the plan, and then oops, you have to kind of adjust.
That's not lost on me, just how much that would have to adjust. You were talking about the mountain lion. I'm an Aussie. I always say it. Sometimes we sort of wear like a badge of pride of the dangerous animals that are in Australia and they don't worry us. Snakes, spiders, sharks, whatever. But we don't have mountain lions. A lot of people talk about bears when they're going through the Tour Divide because obviously the first section of the race you are in bear country. But yeah, you're in mountain lion country as well. I've never seen them. I wouldn't even know.
When you see one. I didn't, and I knew.
Oh my gosh. And then like it's in the video, you like, I saw 2 eyes and then I see another 2 and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a mountain lion. And then I'm just like, just keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think, as far as I know, mountain lions are not typically aggressive or dangerous if they don't feel threatened. So that's fine. Just keep going. Grizzly bear could be aggressive for no reason. So we have to, but I don't know if you saw this. I had a grizzly bear. I had a grizzly bear encounter in 2022. So 2022, I signed a pro contract. I tried going after my Olympic dream again. I had this opportunity in Spain. So I signed this contract with a Spanish team. Our Canadian nationals are in Edmonton in June. So I fly to Edmonton. And then I don't race until August. And so then I was like, hey, I'm going to be close to Banff. And I still have the coach who supports me doing what I want to do. And so I asked him, hey, what do you think that I bring my mountain bike, and after nationals, instead of doing an endurance block, I just ride the Tour Divide for like 2 weeks, and I'm just going to try to do as many hours as possible. He was like, great. I was scared of grizzly bears. So 2022, I've never bike packed in bear country. Bear is my number one fear. So I went to the store to buy this bear spray, and I thought I was going to buy two, one for practice, but it was like $50. And then I was like, oh, like that's too expensive to like waste it. And the guy at the store was like, it's so easy, just press here, like that's fine. And you like, you're not going to use it. So whatever. I leave Banff. That was in July. So a month after the race, nobody's on the trail. I'm by myself. Nobody's here. 45 minutes out of Banff. I'm just starting. I'm frightened by the bear. And the goal is to overcome my fear of bear by doing this 2 week adventure. 45 minutes, come around this bend. I come face to face with a grizzly bear. And at first, I like dismount my bike, and I was speaking to the bear so softly. It was obvious that I was frightened. And then I started walking backward, which you should not do. You should not stand backward. So the bear started walking toward me because he sees the fear. And so I walk backward. He's walking toward me. He's staring at me. He is gigantic. We're like 15 meter, 20 meter, like very close. I can see it so well. I'm like, when is the time that I need to take my bear spray? Like, is it now? Like, and but I had to lean my bike against me to free a hand to grab it. But he's walking toward me, so I'm like, I'm gonna have to stop walking to grab my bear spray. So I lean my bike, grab my bear spray, but like it's 8 in the morning, my hands is frozen. I can't remove the cap because I don't know, because I didn't practice. Because and so I start freaking out because I can't remove the protection cap. So I take my other hand and I rip the cap off. But by ripping it off, I accidentally sprayed myself because it was toward me. I didn't realize.
Oh my gosh.
And so now I freak out. I thought I was going to die. Seriously? I thought I was going to die. And then I'm like, I'm not going to see anything. And then I'm like, oh, I can still see. I have my sunglasses. I have my cycling sunglasses, which really well covers my face. So now I'm like, I can still see. So then I point the bear and spray toward him. And as soon as I sprayed toward him, he took off. He ran.
Whoa.
So then it was like, oh my God, that is so efficient. I didn't know it worked so well. And it was great because in the back of my mind, this trip, I wanted to see if I could overcome my fear of bear. And right off the gate, I did it because now I know what to do. I just need to take my bear spray and I know that it works. Now I have confidence that if I come into another grizzly bear, I just grab my bear spray. Bam, now I know how to use it. So now I went from frightened to I know what to do. I can do this in like an hour.
Wow. And can I just say that, listeners, if you could have just seen me while Marie's telling that story, by the way, you know, Marie, there's a saying, there's a bear shit in the woods. I tell you what, if I was you, Bella certainly would have. Like, far out. You know, when you said you didn't know how to use bear spray, like, to be fair, when you buy it, you're hoping you're never going to use it, right?
Yeah, and most people have it, they never use it.
No.
I just bought one and I used it the next day.
Far out. Wow. The other thing that reminds me of, though, Marie, is, you know, and this was 2022, so then you lined up in 2023 at the race. This is another little thing in your repertoire of how this will go. Like, you've ridden some of the course, you know what to expect from that perspective. You've had the bikepacking experience, you know what it's like to ride a loaded bike off-road, uphill, downhill, and all that. And now you have this experience as well. Something one of my previous guests had mentioned, and it's a little anecdote that I use now. Martin, it was an episode, Martin and Katya, they rode the Americas, like south up to Vancouver. And Martin previously had done like a 40,000 kilometer world trip, the big trip as he calls it. But something he said was because of that, he had the benefit of being able to pack into his panniers experience from that trip. So he packed experience into his panniers in terms of setting off. And it's not something physical, it's not something tangible, but the experience that you build up by doing things, they help you to keep doing the thing, and those barriers get knocked down because you know how to deal with it. So I feel you can relate to that.
Yeah, well, I thought I was ready for the Tour Divide 2023. And then I was like, oh, I don't know how to do this. You have to watch the film.
Definitely.
Did you watch the entire film? Because it was kind of long.
The entire film, like only about 3 or 4 times. Of course.
Okay, okay.
I watched this film when it first came out. Like, it was amazing. And then I watched it again. Like,
You watched it in the beginning.
the algorithm does kind things to me sometimes.
Yeah,
I don't want to pressure you to, for any reason, to have to feel like you're signing up or something. But 2022, you ride the route. 2023, you're racing the route, and they're two different things. So if you were to do something in 2024, you've got the experience of racing it now. You were talking about your sleep strategy, what you would change.
yeah,
There are things now that you know about to adapt.
yeah.
Each race would be different. Whether there's a trail of women dots ahead of you, you might turn up in 2024 and you're not chasing anyone because they're chasing you. So,
I don't know. I think there's a few reasons that makes me hesitate to do it again, but a few reasons that makes me want to do it again.
are you the sort of the person that doesn't like revisiting things as well? Like, you'd like to discover new things?
Before racing the Tour Divide, I had so much to gain in the life experience. You have to try bikepacking racing. I wanted to become the person at the finish line. I wanted to see what I was capable of doing. I was doing this mindset experiment. I had so much curiosity in that aspect. I was like, I was wondering what it's like to race nonstop. Just like in the I Just Want to Ride documentary by Lyle Wilcox. I was like, what is it like to do that? I would like listen to some of her podcasts and just like, how is it to have your mindset nonstop? I wanted to experience that. I want to see. I had a big need of like finding out, learning about it. But now that's kind of checked. So that's a big portion of it that I don't have now because I know what it's like. I know what I'm kind of capable of doing. And so now it's more about can I learn from last year? But then I raced so much in my career. And sometimes it's like, what do I have to gain? Like, I like racing, but I don't need to win. I think I went to a point that I achieved enough and I know my worth and my results will not affect my worth. So it's almost like a game. I enjoyed racing for the heck of it, but it's not like I need to win for ego, whatever. Like I don't feel that. But Tour Divide is really expensive, and also when I was working on the film, it was all great until kind of the last few days. I did cut a lot of things. I did cut hours of suffering, of me looking completely out of this world like nonsense. And looking at these images, and this is not even in the movie. I went really fast in the finish because I wanted it ended well, and I just kind of removed a little bit of the suffering because I didn't want to discourage some people. Yeah, when I look at those images, I'm like, I cannot do this again. This was highly dangerous and stupid.
I can only imagine the footage that you left in there tells a story of fatigue and sleep deprivation and pushing limits. I mean, there was a scene close to the end where you are brought to tears just riding your bike, and it's just this realization of things. And whereas if you think back to that first trip you did, well, the 5-week trip in 2021, I remember feeling so happy when I watched this, and you say something like, I could ride my bike for another month. I would be so happy to do this.
Yeah, if you want to try backpacking for the first time, watch my first film. If you want to learn about what it's like to do a race like the Tour Divide for the first time, then watch my second film.
They're different stories.
Yeah, it's still very accessible from a like an inexperienced.
A first timer.
I'm not a pro bikepacker.
It makes me curious then, because like when you were talking about Colombia, you said that you realized that you like going fast, you like going pushing it, you liked the chase, and you need a goal. And in Colombia, you felt you didn't have one. Do you think you would ever maybe be the sort of person that lines up for with that time trial idea of a fastest known time attempt or something like that? Is that something that you're interested in?
Yeah, but again, fast and snow time, I think I'd rather race because I don't think I have physiology on the endurance side to accomplish anything worth. I don't think I'm any close to. There's so many fast women, but it's fun with the race. I don't know if you came across this reel on my Instagram. I posted a reel before the Tour Divide. It was a kind of a poetry on hardship. It was this beautiful text that I wrote about when I decided to do the Tour Divide in January of 2023, and I was starting to pitch ideas, like working on PDF to like the film presentation. So I was writing a lot, and I wrote this beautiful piece on hardship. It was like a love letter to hardship, of how much the best experience comes from hardship. Like the most satisfying feeling comes from hardship, from overcoming hardship. And it was funny how I posted this before the Tour Divide, and at the end of the text, I say, what I need is not to reach a goal. What I need is to chase one. Because when you think about it, I went to like world championship, or like I accomplished so many goals, and then you find yourself in the same place. So what I need to be the best person that I can, the best version of me, is to have a goal in sight. This is what gets me up in the morning. This is how I'm going to do my meditation. I'm going to do my yoga. I'm going to do my freaking core, whatever. When I have a goal, because reaching a goal doesn't do anything, gone. But having a goal in sight is what I need. This is how I want to live. This is how I love to live, when I have a goal to chase. And so I wrote this beautiful text on like chasing a goal just before the Tour Divide. It's almost like I had predicted that I was not going to win the Tour Divide, but I was going to be chasing.
And in a way, chasing it was winning it for you. That's what energizes you, is chasing a goal.
Yeah. And so, like in the Tour Divide, every day I thought I was going to make it. And this is great. I was full of hope. If I was in, I didn't want to be in Lyle's shoes with a bunch of women on my heels. I'd rather be the one full of hope that anything can happen.
Chasing.
It was actually like, looking back, it was great to be where I was and just getting after it with everything I have.
Watching your Tour Divide film, it really comes out. That is what energizes you.
Yeah.
Having that motivation to
I'm
chase.
gonna get them. Today I'm gonna get them.
Yeah, I'm going to catch them. They're like a kilometer ahead of me. I can do this. And like I said, viewers, we've talked about it a few times. Definitely go to YouTube and check out Marie's channel there and watch the film. Make some popcorn, settle in. It's worth it. You know what's really good? It's not like 10 minutes. It's an hour or so, and it's totally worth your time. It's a great evening session.
Thank you.
Marie, the other thing that's happened for you now since discovering bikepacking is you've also set up a way to help other women get into this side of the sport as well.
Yeah.
I'd really like to take some time to talk about what you're doing in that space.
Yeah, so it's funny because that also was comes from being inspired by Lyle Woodcock's doing great things for women to get in the sport. And I was like, I was getting sick of chasing my own little goals. And I was like, what can I do? What can I do that would bring value to the cycling community, to women? And so in 2022, I thought about doing indoor cycling class on YouTube. So I just made this post on Facebook: every Thursday night, join me for a live workout. So there was the live chat. So you sign up on this website. I'm going to send you the workout so you can put it on Zwift. Because I have to mention, in Canada, there's a lot of indoor cycling, obviously, because of the winter. Yeah, a lot of people need a way to connect during the winter months, because it's really difficult to ride indoors. So it started as a just a way to just get together, motivate people. I had so many emails. I never thought this was going to be so popular. I had 250 women signing up in the first year, and then my inbox was flooding with questions and thank yous, and so it turned into kind of a coaching. I didn't know that I had so much knowledge to share. So I started explaining the goals of the workout, why we're doing this, and why we do this in this order, this or that. And then people could ask questions in the live chat. It was like a training program for 10 weeks, and I had some prizes. So every classes that you do, you have a chance to win some prizes at the end. So to help people come, and it was such a success that so I had to like redo the website, and so I did another session last fall. I did another boot camp, and then it kind of turned into having my first training camp, which I just held last week. So I had 5 women flying to Tucson. We did a bunch of workshop, the typical touring stuff, but it was I had 3 women in their 60s. I think 4 of them never flew with their bike, and they never thought it was possible for them to fly with their bike. And I was like, yeah, it's possible. I'm going to show you how. So I guided them through the entire process. They got to Tucson. I went to pick them up. I helped them build their bikes. And it was like, you know what? I want to give everyone the opportunity to live the pro cycling experience. So I wanted to treat them like pro. So just like I didn't want talent or age or, skills to be a barrier to come to Tucson is a great place for cycling. I didn't want all of these barriers to prevent them from seeing what it's like. And it was amazing to see like how much confidence it's going to give them. Like now they can do now they can fly somewhere and go on a bike trip. I did like this navigation and itinerary workshop to help them like use the technology that they have so that they don't have to rely on someone.
Yeah, this is awesome. My gosh, you're helping them break barriers down. And it's interesting because like sometimes you need to be shown the way, to be shown that you can do it. I love everything about this. Is doing more of these training camps something that you think you'll continue on with? Like you said this was the first one. My gosh, I hope you're doing more.
Yeah, I think I will definitely continue building the indoor cycling class in the winter months and then having the training camps. I'm also working on a conference on self-suppressment. Obviously, that's what I do. And then maybe other film project. So right now, Tour Divide, I haven't committed yet, but I'm trying to see if I can have enough time to prepare for it and if I can dial my gear to the setup. I'm still like looking for the right saddle or like little things like that. So if I have been able to put the time in training, then I'll do it. Otherwise, I'm going to be doing Race Across Quebec. That's a road race, 500K on the road in Quebec in August. But I feel like after doing the Tour de Divide, you can do anything, right? So I'm like, okay, that's easier to manage, like time, financially, like everything. And it's in Quebec. So I'm like, no way that I'm not racing that.
How empowering for you, Marie, to be able to reflect on yourself and your experiences and say, I can do this because I did that.
Yeah,
I think that's fantastic.
you need to push your boundaries because it just opens possibility. You think you can't do it, well, try, and you'll be surprised you can do. And then next thing you know, you can do anything.
So, if people want to find out more about these sessions that you're hosting online, how do they find out about this? How do they get on board?
Yeah, the website is womensride.ca. Women, WOMENSRIDE.ca. And so I'm not doing classes right now because now it's going to be summer, but you can still sign up to the newsletter. So I'll have you on my mailing list. And when I do another program, you can be to know.
I will definitely include it in the show notes, listeners, and I heartily encourage you to check it out. I'm energized just talking with you, Marie. So I can just imagine what it would be like to take your classes and then go on a training camp with you.
Women love it. It's, yeah, I think
We need more of it for sure, which is brilliant.
I'm better at hosting indoor cycling class than at winning bike race.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I think you'd still win a few. I think you've got it in you. I definitely do. And it's like you've just opened the door to a new side of a sport too. Watch out. Race across Quebec or race around Quebec?
Race Across Quebec. That's in the Race Across series.
Yeah. I know it. I'm going to keep an eye on you. 500 Ks, you're going to smash it.
Well, I'm curious because this is different.
Definitely. And you like changing boundaries.
Now, this 500K distance, I've never done a 500K race. So now I wonder, because now it's a bit different. So I have a bit more motivation because I have this curiosity. Yeah.
As I look to wrap the show up, Marie, there's a series of questions which I ask all of my guests.
Yeah.
I'm really keen to hear some answers for you. One of them, actually, I feel you've told us some stories, but I'm going to be keen to see what you say for this. I want you to take me to a day of one of your trips. Just, it can be any trip that you've taken. It can be that first trip. It can be the Tour Divide 22 or, riding the route, the racing the route. It could even be in Colombia. I want you to take me to a day and a moment and what it was like during that time.
I don't know. Maybe day one of my first ever trip.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So fly to Las Vegas, and then the next day I leave, and I just downloaded this route from bikepacking.com. It was like difficulty, I don't know, 6 out of 10, but I didn't know that their 6 out of 10 means mountain biker level. I'm a roadie. So, like, I'm on this road, la 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 la. And then my Garmin's beeps, and it's like, I have to turn here, but it's like, it's not a road. There's no way. And so I'm like, what? And yep, it was in the middle of nowhere. It was so remote. I couldn't see anything. And I had planned to camp at a campground for my first ever camping night ever by myself. So there's no way that I'm going to be camping in the middle of nowhere. And then ran out of water. I got there so late. I was so destroyed. Panicked the whole time because sunset was coming and I didn't have proper lighting at the time. Anyway, epic day. Came to this campground. Of course, it was full. I didn't even know you have to book spot. But then some people let me camp behind their van. Once I got set up, it started raining. And yeah, that was my first day of
Into
bikepacking.
the deep end. I'm impressed that you continued on for another 5 weeks after that. But
I mean, and it kept going, but I'm not a quitter.
you don't turn back, as you say.
I was watching this interview with Marion Voss. I don't know if some people are familiar with women. She's one of the greatest female cyclists ever.
Some would say one of the greatest cyclists ever, even. Yeah.
She said, I have never abandoned a race because the first time that I will do it, the second time will be easier. And this, I read that many years ago. And I said, I will never abandon a race. Of course, sometimes you don't have a choice. Sometimes you're being asked to leave the race, or sometimes you're injured or you break something. Sure. But I'm talking about
Giving up.
I don't want to continue this race and I decide to abandon. I have never done it. And reading that from Marion Voss just reinforced and now it's like I'm never quitting.
And I get that from talking with you as well. It's just so obvious. You don't turn back. I love it.
Because if you do it once, the second time is going to be easier.
Yeah.
So just never do it.
No.
Never. That's it.
No.
Don't even think about it. It's not an option.
There's so many learnings from this.
So with your podcast, if you ever doubt yourself, keep going. When it's clear, it's clear. In doubt, keep going.
I love that. I feel like I need to write that on the top of my bike's top tube. If in doubt, just keep going.
Yeah. Yeah.
It could be like a stem cap.
In doubt.
You need to make those. You know how people have different little stem caps?
Yeah.
There you go. That could be yours. And I imagine these are the mantras you're thinking about when you're doing time trials and stuff as well. Okay, last few questions. And we touched on this earlier in the show. Music is a massive thing for you when you're riding. You're bopping away on your trail, and music and beats, and they lift your mood and they take you to places. So maybe this is a really hard question, but I get the benefit of asking it anyway. If you have to choose a song and it's going to be the soundtrack for your adventures, what song do you pick?
I can't pick one.
You have to.
I love music, but it's a flow. Not one can have all of the emotion. So it's like there's a lot of like I got into reggaeton the last few years since racing with Astana. I was very Spanish and spinning. Yeah, but other than that, I don't know. I listen to a lot of Chesto, but it changes. I like to just keep it
Oh, I
fresh.
know you have to keep it fresh, but I need a song from you, Marie, because you get to go on the Seek Travel Ride music playlist with that song. People listen to it.
I love that one. Against the Tide.
Who sings this?
Delta Heavy. It's just this came up one day and I just liked it and now it's in my.
So Against the Tide by Delta Heavy. You are down against the tide. I like it. I can't wait to listen to it actually, and I'm going to be thinking about you bopping away.
Full gas.
Full gas, full speed ahead, chase on the chase.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of like
This is relevant. This is appropriate. This is exactly what we're here for.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Brilliant. I love it. Okay, these final two questions are quick and dirty, easy ones for you, Marie. First one, you got a choice one day. You can ride your bike forever on a constant hill climb, or otherwise you have to ride your bike forever on this day into a constant headwind. Which one are you going to choose?
Climbing.
Climbing.
I don't fear breaking my face on rocks.
I am on team uphill. I think 9 out of 10 of my guests, 90% of you are team uphill. There was part of me that wondered whether you would be team headwind because you're a time trial specialist, and so perfecting and being aerodynamic and cutting through is something you like.
Yeah, headwind is a killer. It's one of the hardest.
It's horrendous.
Yeah.
It's a mental battle too, isn't it? Not just physical. It mucks with your head.
Oh, yeah, it's hard.
All right. Final question. This one I think should be easier for you. You're riding your bike. It's only for 4 hours one day, but you have the choice. Will you want to ride your bike for 4 hours on your own or for 4 hours with other people?
Oh, I think I remember that question. By myself, with my music. That's where I'm happier.
I knew that was going to be your answer when we touched on that about being comfortable being on your own in the desert for 5
Yeah,
weeks. I thought, oh, she's going to be riding on her own.
yeah. And it's funny because I do enjoy leading those indoor cycling class because I'm serving a purpose. But like chatting and just whatever, I just rather go at my speed and with my music.
It's the right answer for you. Well, Marie-Soleil Blais, I have had just the most fun time listening to you tell your story and share your experiences on this journey of yours. It's been an incredible one. I feel so thankful for you for being given that coach who asked you those questions, because I think that has been a life-changing sliding doors moment for you. And it's been absolutely incredible to have you on Seek Travel Ride and share your story for our listeners. Thank you so, so much for sharing your story on the show.
Thanks to you.
I feel full of energy having just spoken there with Marie, and to hear her share her stories and experiences of turning things around from being a professional road cyclist to all of a sudden having to find her purpose and her goal, coming up with the idea of, I want to challenge myself. Hearing her talk about that first day, that experience on day one on that 5-week trip, the Garmin says turn this way, and she's like, what on earth? Is there a road there? There is some beauty in ignorance is bliss, but also just looking and hearing her reflect back on her journey since 2021 to what she's achieved and what she's continuing to achieve, and to also how she is now sharing her experience with others to break down those barriers, to show those group of women that you can put your bike, you can travel with it, you can do these things, and these barriers are ones that you can break through as well. I think my biggest learning, when in doubt, keep going. I love that. I think that's going to be my new little motto as well. So thank you so, so much, Marie. That was such an energizing experience for me, and I'm sure for you there listening at home as well. If you're enjoying Seek Travel Ride, then you definitely want to be involved in our community. So the way to do that is to join our Seek Travel Ride newsletter. It lets you know what's coming up on the show, which guests we've got lined up, and also a bit more about our community as well. Those of you, our listeners, some of your listener mail, and ways that you can be involved in episodes too. To subscribe to the newsletter, you will find a link in the show notes. Click subscribe, and then you will be on our monthly mailing list. Until the next episode, I'm Bella Malloy. Thanks for listening.